Hello everyone and welcome to the coding branch. In today's video, we get to combine our knowledge thus far on HTML and CSS and create a navbar. A navbar consists of links at the header of a website that allow you to effectively navigate the web page. Just about every website is going to have a navbar, and there are a number of ways you can design it. But today, we're going to keep it simple and cover the basics. Alright, so to start, we've got ourselves an HTML document that contains a div with an ID of pages that houses a few H1s that we're using to represent a few pages on a website. Obviously, your website will have different pages down here to navigate to. The classes on these pages are going to be used for styling, but the IDs here are going to be where we point our navigation, but I'll explain that further when we get there. Our HTML is already linked to our CSS, which simply gives the whole document a margin and padding of 0, and gives each page a height of 100% of the client's screen. As usual, if you want to access this code, you can grab it from the GitHub link in the description below. A navbar is always going to be in the header of a page, so we'll add a header element to contain everything else. When breaking down a navbar into its simplest components, it's really just a list of links. So that's what we're going to create. But we're going to add this list inside of an HTML tag called nav. This tells the document we're adding a set of navigation links. Then we'll give it a class of navbar and add that list. For this list, we're going to be going with an unordered list with a class of nav links to keep it self-descriptive. And inside, we can add a list item with a link inside of it. The link will give our class of nav link and a name of page 1. Then we'll give it a href of hashtag page 1. This is what links our ID to the page 1 here. It's what allows us to navigate from page to page. So make sure these match. We'll go ahead and create the rest of the list items. Once your list is complete, you can see it does work, but it's styled terribly, so let's move on to CSS. I'm going to start by editing our elements in the order they come in to keep it simple. Starting with the header, we're going to give it a fixed position to keep it at the top of the screen, a top of 0 to put it there, a width of 100%, then we'll center the text with text align. Now I'm going to add a box shadow to the bottom of the header so you can tell when it ends. And now is when you're going to declare which color you want your navbar. But I kind of want to be a little fancy, so I'll actually give it a background color of transparent. Then I'm going to give it a backdrop filter that is blurry, and also a WebKit backdrop filter of the same blur. This will give it a really cool blur effect I've always enjoyed using on navbars. Alright, now let's get our nav links in order. We'll start by getting rid of this dot on each of these list items by giving a list style of none. Then to align everything properly, we'll add a display flex, justify content space evenly, and align item center. Ah, that looks much better. Let's just give a little breathing room though. I'll do this by giving it a min height. Now to give each link a style. We'll first get rid of this underline by giving a text decorator of none. We'll also not want blue text, so we'll change the color black. Let's also make the font size a little bigger and give it a font weight of bold. The last thing you should do for the user's benefit is to add a hover effect on each link to be sure the client knows they can click it. Alright, sweet. It's actually looking like a navbar. The only issue is that everyone uses their phone nowadays to access web content, and this just isn't responsive. So let's fix that. We'll need to go back to our HTML though. When on mobile, usually a website has what's called a hamburger that you can click on to have more navigation links slide in front of the screen. This can be done in a number of ways, especially when you get into JavaScript, but we're going to be achieving it with an input checkbox for the user input and a label to display the hamburger. So create a label with a class of hamburger with 3 empty spans in it. Follow that with a checkbox input tag with an ID of hamburger. And the last thing you need to do is tell the label it's for the input called hamburger. And then we can finish the project with a little more CSS. To begin, we'll give both the class and ID of hamburger a display of none. Then we're going to be using a media query to determine when the page should break to be on the mobile version. For this, I know it's pretty large, but I'm going to be giving it a max width of 900 pixels. This can honestly save you if we have a content field navbar. Now we're going to give some styling to our hamburger. First, give it a display of flex direction of column, and justify content to space evenly. Then a width and height of 50 pixels. then give it a cursor or pointer so users know it's clickable, and finally give it a position of absolute with a right and top of 10 pixels. Now you need to style the spans within the hamburger. We're going to give each a height of 7 pixels, a border radius of 5 pixels to round the edges, and a background of black so you can see them. Now we'll add a flex direction of column to the nav links to align them and give each a bigger font size. Now when the navbar input is checked, we can change the list item to a display of block, and the last two may look a bit tricky, but essentially what we're doing is telling the third thing in our list, which happens to be our logo, to go to the top of the list and be our title. If you change this number on both, it will change which is the title for mobile. As you can see, that about completes our navbar, and though it's simple, it does get the job done and is even responsive. If you have any questions about it, let me know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this type of shorthanded content, leave a like and don't forget to subscribe on your way out.